Hi everyone and welcome. Today I want to take you to a journey deep into the science of health and aging and want to go beyond simple health advice into why we age, but with a practical twist. I want to give you some approaches on how to combat that and also make you understand what are actually the issues why we age and how we will battle them in the future. So I will focus this time on research called SENSE, which takes the molecular aging at the cell level and divides it into 7 types of damage that happens at the cell level or at the biomolecular level. There are other ways to think of aging, tissue damage, functional, and so on. But this one is scientifically proven that it happens, and a good way to think of aging as in rejuvenation. How do we reverse the changes? So first I will introduce the 7 types in a language that you can hopefully understand. Number 1, cell loss and tissue atrophy. So this is an everyday example would be muscle wasting in age. We are talking about aging bodies, not young. So what happens in tissue atrophy? The body loses cells faster than they can be replaced. This leads to weakened tissues and organs. So if you lay in bed for 2 weeks or so because you're sick, you're gonna lose muscle mass, but in aging, it will also affect other organs. They just won't have enough healthy cells to do their job. That's number 1. And number 2 is kind of the opposite direction, which is called senescent cells. In the last years, they have been an intense subject of study. What are senescent cells? They are cells who don't atrophy, who don't die, like it's programmed, but they stick around. So 80-year-old person will have a couple of senescent cells in his muscles, and these cells are like grandfather cells or grandmother cells. They still are muscle cells and function, but they function badly because of all the wear and tear of time. And that means they don't divide anymore into healthy new cells. They accumulate the damage because how cells get rid of damage is often dividing into 2 new cells. And those grandfather cells, they secrete harmful substances like hormones, hormone-like substances and others that tell everyone around them, I'm a grandfather cell. So what happens? The other cells adopt this signaling and they start acting old as well, even if they don't have the damage. So we have to get rid of those cells without affecting the healthy ones, because it's not just that they exist and don't serve a purpose. They tell other cells around them that they are old too. And there's some research that tells us that getting rid of them actually benefits and is not a problem. Damage type number 3 is the mutations that cause cancer. So DNA gets degraded over time due to all the wear and tear, and that can cause cancer, which is uncontrolled replication of cells, which then, if they get enough evil mutations, decides that they just multiply in your body like bacteria. Oversimplified, of course. So why are the other mutations not mentioned here? Because, well, they either lead to tissue atrophy. If a cell is badly mutated, it might just die or be killed by a protective program in the body. That would be good. Or the number 2 is cellular senescence. If they have enough mutations, they turn into those grandfather cells. So mutations are really mostly relevant to cancer, if we also already have those 2 other categories. Number 4 is mitochondrial mutations. So there is your DNA and you actually have something else that is not your core DNA in the mitochondria. So what are mitochondria? Usually your muscle mass, your muscle cells, your brain, all the tissues that lead in a lot of energy have lots of them, like dozens, and all cells need some mitochondria because they are just subunits of your cells that generate energy. So without mitochondria there is no energy creation. So that's, by the way, that's one reason why cyanide is so toxic. It just blocks all the mitochondria, so no more energy from calories or burning them with oxygen you breathe. And so in aging, the mitochondria get old, you have fewer, and that means you produce less energy, and you need energy for everything, for your muscle system in order to prevent frailty, for your immune system definitely, for cell division, for everything. So that's a major fundamental cause of aging. Your mitochondria get old and fewer. Now we have 5, and number 5, 2 more to go. So stay with me, it will get practical after that. We have the cells, but around them we call the extracellular matrix. It just means the stuff that the cells are embedded into. So some extracellular structures would be fascia. So around your muscle there is supportive tissue, which might cause even a lot of chronic pain, like back pain or whatever in age, because lots of nerves run through that. But we have it in basically every tissue. We need the extracellular stuff. And this extracellular matrix, it's called, it can get stiff. So the proteins age, the structure becomes rigid because not all of the structure renews all the time, and that leads to chronic pains and stiffness, frailty, and so on. Number 6 is closely related. It's the toxic stuff that builds up in the extracellular space. So it can be harmful proteins which cause inflammation, and Alzheimer's disease would also be an example of that. So one of the major mechanisms, of course, Alzheimer's disease and dementia is more complex than that, but one of the major mechanisms is that this Alzheimer's related proteins, so you might have heard about amyloid, but it's not just that, it's more complex, but the harmful proteins accumulate there and the body doesn't clear all of it. So it clears, like with all damages, most of the stuff, but let's say, for example, 1% is not cleared, and by your normal metabolism, regeneration during sleep and so on, and this 1% that's not cleared accumulates and accumulates, and this is why it takes decades for you to fail, basically, to have frailty and disease. This process takes decades. And besides the extracellular junk, we also have the intracellular, the junk within the cells. So again, the principle is your body clears up more than 99% of all the junk. It can help if you do exercise. It can help if you do fasting, or at least leave space between meals. So that's whenever you're not taking stuff in or reacting to some wound regeneration or something, your body will do this cleanup process, but 1% or even less than 1% cannot be cleaned up. One example of that is cholesterol. So cholesterol, if you don't have an excess of it, it's not harmful, but it can oxidize into byproducts which don't have a purpose, and they can harm your cells by clogging them up, very simply spoken. Again, there are a couple hundred of potential molecules that cholesterol can oxidize into, and most of them, 90%, 99%, the body can degrade and does degrade, unless, say, you have a metabolic disease or strong obesity or so, and then the disease goes faster. But usually it degrades 99% of that stuff. but a few molecules created cannot be degraded or can hardly be degraded, and they pile up over the decades. So this is why the disease that comes with aging takes several decades to manifest, because all of this piles up slowly. And that is basically the biomolecular level of aging. There's of course more to it, but we want to look always at one aspect and one model of aging, because then if we can understand that model, then we can fix it. So because this is not a science channel, but about health advice and life advice, now I go into some examples where you can mitigate the process. So some people do rejuvenation, they do hardcore biohacking stuff, which like reverses the damage. But to reverse all of the damage, we are not there yet, because we still have the life expectancy that we know. It's not greatly extended, so the research needs to happen first. But there are some things we can do, and I will just tell you for each of the damage types what are examples that you can apply right now in your life, in your health routine. So number one was cell loss and tissue atrophy. What's really important is regular exercise. So mostly it's resistant exercise, weight-bearing exercise, because one of the most important tissues that shouldn't get too little are muscles. If you do resistance exercise, weight-bearing, then you have a greatly reduced risk and onset of frailty in old age. That's kind of a no-brainer. And you can do other things to support your muscles. So the other tissue is more complicated because you cannot exercise your liver, but remember that the heart, which is very important, so heart disease is a major cause of death. The heart is a muscle and you can train it. So while you train your skeletal muscle with weight-bearing exercise, the best way to train your heart is through aerobic exercise like jogging or even brisk walking, but done regularly. And there are some biohacks. It's simple. I'm just going through the simple stuff. Vitamin D supplementation that just benefits your bone and immune system, but it's quite important for muscle health also, and muscles and bone play together. So vitamin D you shouldn't be deficient in. You will need all the electrolytes like magnesium, calcium and so on for proper muscle function, and the muscle needs to function so you can train it. There are some things like creatine, which is like, okay, people think it's a fitness supplement, but actually people have proven that if you give creatine to very old individuals with frailty, it reduces their frailty, because the frailty in old age is largely due to tissue atrophy in the muscles. So number two, cellular senescence, those grandfather cells that don't die but don't serve a purpose and tell the other cells that they are old as well. That is the research in the recent years about senolytics, which just means like compounds that clear out those cells. And there's a big potential also for treating serious diseases, but what you can do is there are lots of plant nutrients that also trigger it. There are more advanced medications and research chemicals that trigger it, but you can take plants. And this would be quercetin from onions, but also lots of other things. You can research what is which in quercetin. It would be black tea, or if you're a coffee drinker, you can take black tea extract. Then it's things like resveratrol, lots of others. So senolytics, you can research it. There is curcumin from curry, which also does it. And last but not least, it's fasting and interval fasting, intermediate fasting, that also does it. Calorie restriction, Well, fasting is like a very old ancient program, and it tells our program of the body that's incredibly complex to regenerate and go into healing mode at lots of space, at lots of places. And so it benefits this, but it benefits almost all of the damage types I list here, because it's just a trigger for regeneration that's evolutionary conserved. Then we have the cancer-causing mutations. So, some cancer-causing substances should be avoided, like pesticides, eating organics, avoiding pollution. But they don't only do mutations, they also have other harmful effects. Well, mutations unfortunately arise through our everyday living. They arise through breathing, because it's just the oxygen that goes into our cells, goes into mitochondria to generate energy, but it also can oxidize DNA. And it's eating as well. So energy is created by breathing and eating, and these things cause mutations as well. So, but you can reduce it by taking dietary antioxidants like vitamin C and E that reduces oxidative stress and prevents some of the mutations. And there are targeted supplements like curcumin. The next damage type is mitochondrial mutations. So mitochondrial mutations are a little bit harder, because they are the things that take the air and calories from food and generate energy out of it. So it's like a burning furnace. So they are right in the middle of this process. So some things you can do: if you're aged 30 and older, it makes sense to supplement with coenzyme Q10, which is an important substance of the mitochondria. And other substances which directly help the mitochondria are lipoic acid and carnitin, PQQ. But if you want to have it simpler, it's doing aerobic exercise, because aerobic exercise especially is the prime thing that just increases the amount of mitochondria. So when the resistance exercise, weight-bearing exercise, also increases mitochondria, it's for increasing muscle mass. But aerobic exercise is putting your mitochondria to heavy load. They have to generate lots of energy, and what then happens is they divide inside your cells, and you'll have more. So, and again, fasting is one thing that definitely benefits mitochondria a lot as well. Then we have the extracellular matrix things. So many people today already take collagen hydrolysate. That's one thing, because collagen is a major constituent of the extracellular matrix. In some cases, people inject hyaluronic acid or take it in. Well, hyaluronic acid is another important compound of the extracellular matrix, but that does not always translate to guaranteed results. So the results are mixed. But to take collagen every day definitely makes sense from an anti-aging perspective. And then it's exercise. So many people who have chronic pain that is due to fascial pain, they just need to move a lot more, because that helps with the stiffening. And physical therapy and stretching is also physical interventions that help with the stiffening. But there are, of course, other things with matrix stiffening, this accumulating damage that you cannot just repair or take out easily, because otherwise the body would just do that. So we need research there as well. With extracellular aggregates, it's really complicated, so that's why nobody solved Alzheimer's disease, and it's just one type of aggregate. You can take healthy fatty acids like omega-3s, linoleic acid, You can do fasting because how fast the extracellular aggregates appear is really related to how much how much food you take in, but also to how much glucose is there. So like if you do baking and have sugar, you know it's a sticky substance, and then on a molecular level, sugar is also sticky. It sticks together proteins which then don't function. So keeping your sugar and blood glucose levels low will help, and fasting will help, like with almost everything. And curcumin is like a senolytic that goes well for extracellular aggregates in some studies. And then the intracellular stuff, okay, you will guess it, that the most important stuff is fasting to help your body to get rid of all that junk. Green tea or green tea extract helps with that. Cellular senolytics to an extent help there as well, because senolytics, they make the grandfather cells go away, but they also help detoxify the cell. And then this process of self-detoxification is called autophagy, actually. Resveratrol is so popular because it's one major compound which can stimulate it, but many other compounds can stimulate it as well. But again, we cannot remove everything. So there are studies underway which need more funding and more attention, which do that, and each of these types of damage is investigated. So there is a Sense Foundation which investigates interventions for these studies, like for aggregates. They can prove that some kind of eye disease is closely related to aggregates, so they try with their approaches to fix this eye disease. Might be AMD or glaucoma. I'd have to look it up, because aging is not universally regarded as a disease, so you have to treat the single diseases of aging with that. And there is also the mouse rejuvenation study, robust mouse rejuvenation, which takes lots of supplements and medications and does them together. So you have 7 damage types and you do an intervention for 4 of the damage types together. So you have a control group, and then you have one group for each, and then you have a combined group. And the researchers like Aubrey de Grey hope to show that if you combine treatments, which modern medicine is almost not doing in studies, we will have a major breakthrough in the how much we can turn back aging. So if any of that is unclear, please leave me a comment and I will go. Maybe I can answer it directly or point you to the links. I will add some most important links in the video, and leave me feedback what you want to hear and see on this channel. Until next time, bye.